Hello everyone. I'm learning English. Steve Jobs Stanford speech. Let's go.
I'm honored to be with you today for your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world.
I'm honored to be with you today at your commencement from one of the finest university in the world.
Truth be told,
Truth be told,
I never graduated from college,
I never graduated from college,
and
and
this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation.
this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation.
Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life.
Today, I want to tell you 3 stories my life.
That's it. No big deal.
That's it. No big deal.
Just 3 stories.
Just 3 stories.
The first story
The first story
is about connecting the dots.
is about connecting the dots.
I dropped out of Reed College
I dropped out of Reed College
after the first 6 months,
after the first 6 months,
but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit.
but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit.
So why'd I drop out?
So why did I drop out?
It started before I was born.
It started before I was born.
My biological mother was a young, unwed graduate student.
My biological mother was a young, unwed college graduate student,
And she decided to put me up for adoption.
and she decided to put me up for adoption.
She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates.
She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates.
So everything was all set
So everything was all set
for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife.
for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife.
Except that when I popped out,
Except that when I popped out,
they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl.
they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl.
So my parents,
So my parents,
who were on a waiting list,
who were on waiting list,
got a call in the middle of the night asking,
got a call in the middle of the night asking, got a call in the middle of the night asking,
"We've got an unexpected baby boy.
we've got an unexpected baby boy.
Do you want him?"
Do you want him?
They said,
They said,
"Of course."
of course.
My biological mother found out later that
My biological mother found out later.
my mother had never graduated from college,
My mother had never graduated from college,
and that my father had never graduated from high school.
and then my father had never graduated from high school.
She refused to sign the final adoption papers.
She refused to sign the final adoption papers.
She only relented a few months later when my parents promised
She only relented a few months later when my parents promised
that I would go to college.
that I would go to college.
This was the start in my life.
This is the start in my life.
And 17 years later,
And 17 years later,
I did go to college.
I did go to college.
But I naively chose a college that was
But I naively chose a college
almost as expensive as Stanford.
that was almost as expensive as Stanford. Okay, let's go.
And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition.
And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition.
After 6 months,
After 6 months,
I couldn't see the value in it.
I couldn't see the value in it.
I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life,
I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life,
and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out.
and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out.
And here I was, spending all the money my parents had saved their entire life.
And here I was spending all of my money, all of the money my parents had saved their entire life.
So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay.
So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay.
It was pretty scary at the time, but
It was pretty scary at the time,
looking back,
but looking back,
it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
The minute I dropped out,
The minute I dropped out,
I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me
I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me
and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting.
and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting.
It wasn't all romantic.
It was all romantic.
I didn't have a dorm room, so
I didn't have a dorm room,
I slept on the floor in friends' rooms.
so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms.
I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with.
I returned Coke bottles for the 5 silver Jap deposits to buy food with.
And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night
And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night
to get one good meal a week at
to get one good meal a week
the Hare Krishna temple.
at the Hare Krishna temple.
I loved it.
I loved it. I loved it. 와, 이트. 야, 이 말을 이렇게 맛있게 하네.
And much of what I stumbled into
And much of what I stumbled into
by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on.
I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on.
Let me give you one example.
Let me give you one example.
Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country.
Reed College at the time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Reed College at the time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country.
Throughout the campus, every poster,
every poster,
every label on
every label on
every
drawer
was beautifully hand calligraphed.
was beautifully hand calligraphed.
Because I had dropped out
Because I had dropped out
and didn't have to take the normal classes,
and didn't have to take the normal classes,
I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this.
I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this.
I learned about serif and
I learned about serif
sans serif typefaces,
and sans serif typeface,
about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations,
about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations,
about what makes great typography great.
about what makes great typography great.
It was beautiful,
It was beautiful,
historical,
historical,
artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture.
So subtle in a way that science can't capture.
And I found it fascinating.
And I found it fascinating.
None of this had
None of this,
even a hope of any practical application in my life.
none of this had even hope of any practical application in my life.
But 10 years later,
But 10 years later,
when we were designing the first Macintosh computer,
when we were designing the first Macintosh computer,
it all came back to me.
it all came back to me. It all came back to me.
And we designed it all into the Mac.
And we designed it all. And we designed it all into the Mac.
It was the first computer with beautiful typography.
It was the first computer with a beautiful typography.
If I had never dropped in on that single course in college,
If I had never dropped on that single course in college,
the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts.
the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts.
And since Windows just copied the Mac,
And since just Windows just copied the Mac,
it's likely that no personal computer would have them.
it's likely.
And since Windows just copied the Mac,
And since Windows just copied the Mac,
it's likely that no personal computer would have them. And since Windows
it's likely that no personal computer would have them.
just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. If I had never dropped out,
If I had not dropped out,
I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class.
I would have never dropped in on this calligraphy class.
And personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do.
And personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college.
But it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later.
But it was very, very clear looking backward 10 years later.
Again, you
Again,
can't connect the dots looking forward.
you can connect the dots looking forward.
You can only connect them looking backwards.
You can only connect them looking backward.
So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future.
So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future.
You have to trust in something.
You have to trust in something.
Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever.
You got destiny, life, karma, whatever.
Because believing that the dots will connect down the road
Because believing that the dots will connect down the road
will give you the confidence to follow your heart,
will give the confidence to follow your heart,
even when it leads you off the well-worn path.
even when it leads you off the well-worn path.
And that will make all the difference.
And that will make all the difference. Okay, today 여기까지.